Hey everyone, today we're going to do the review on the Hotpoint Top Load washer, model number HTW240ASKWS. This will also apply to a couple other General Electric models, namely the HTW240ASKWS and the General Electric branded HTW240ASKWS and the larger 460ASJWW. This washer has a modest 3.8 cubic foot capacity, which is kind of the middle of the road. It also has the autofill option, and it has 10 different cycle selections. It has a top spin speed of 700 RPMs, which is kind of terrible. And this could be bought at most big box stores for around $450. That would exclude tax and delivery and water hoses. You have to buy your water hoses separately for this machine. This washer has very impressive agitation stroke. I mean, it really does move the clothes around pretty well. If you notice, this was an empty wash video and it was practically splashing water out of the tub. Very good, very aggressive agitation. This was a load of shop towels that I had, mostly white. I had my couple of microfiber towels in there so you could see. It has great turnover. The clothes were very well circulated, and overall I was pretty impressed with the wash action. I washed a full-size blanket and it was pretty impressive. It actually turned that blanket over several times and it did a pretty good job of getting it cleaned. I was thoroughly impressed with the way it handled this blanket. And with a 3.8 cubic foot capacity, you would pretty much expect it to do a good job on such a thin full-size blanket. I mean, this thing is not a thick anything. It's almost like a sheet. Here are the two major problems with this machine. I mean, this thing sounds like it's dying. Please. It just can't balance a load. This is a queen size sheet set. It's just a fitted sheet, the top sheet, and two queen size pillowcases. As you can see, it's kind of taking care of business. I was really impressed with the wash action of this machine. Really not impressed with much else. This washer is $450 for a reason. I will say that it was surprisingly good at washing. I mean, the agitation stroke was pretty good, and I was very impressed with how clean it got some of the items that I put in there. But at the end of the day, this thing is not a long-lasting machine. At $450, you really would be surprised if this thing lasted more than 4 or maybe 5 years at the most. After my 5th or 6th load, I mean, this thing already was squeaking, creaking, clicking, and making all sorts of weird noises. And it was still working fine. It didn't break on me, but this is definitely not like a 15 or 20 year reliable machine. As you could see, the 3.8 cubic foot capacity is still not enough to wash a queen size comforter. Don't even bother. It pretty much did that the whole cycle. So just to prove my point that there is no top load washer out there that can wash a queen size blanket. At $450, you should not have high expectations for a washing machine. This machine was actually quite impressive on how well it washed. It's basically a disappointment in just about every other category. This washer feels cheap. Just when I was moving it around, I noticed just how light it felt, and the body felt like it was like twisting when I tipped it over on my two-wheeler. And it's to be expected for a $450 washing machine. With its surprisingly slow spin speed, I'm actually wondering why would anybody want to buy this machine. Although I could see it fitting a pretty good niche of people who are looking for a good performing washer that's only going to last them 2 or 3 years for less than 500 bucks. This fits the bill. I wouldn't not have this machine because I do think it does a good job washing, and even with the 700 RPM spin speed, the clothes felt relatively spun out when it was done. Even this blanket, after it was done spinning, I wasn't disappointed with it. I felt, I was actually kind of surprised that it was 700 RPMs. I thought it was a little bit more. The biggest problem with this machine is going to be the off-balance issues that it has. I looked online and there's already plenty of complaints about this machine having a difficult time balancing loads. And I totally see it. I mean, it was maybe my second load I tried this full-size blanket, and it started banging against the side of the machine. It did eventually correct itself, so I didn't have to stop and reset the load or reorient my blanket. It ultimately figured itself out, but not before beating the side of the washer cabinet a few times just to let me know that it was starting the spin cycle. If you're in the market for a machine that costs less than $500, you might want to consider buying a good used machine or something that's maybe a scratch and dent. Maybe not consider this model. I feel like despite its good wash performance, it's going to get pretty annoying pretty quick when you start realizing that this washer goes off balance so frequently. Unless you have this washer tucked away in a soundproof basement, that banging around is just going to be absolutely terrible to deal with. If you just need a washer to get you by for a few years, maybe your living situation is that you aren't going to keep this machine long term and you just need something that does a decent job for a few years until you figure out what you're going to do, or maybe you're going to buy a better machine, or if you're going to move, this might be a good option to look at. I don't know if I would own this machine. Again, I've done a few loads with it already and I wasn't impressed with it overall, although I was absolutely floored on how great the agitation was on it. For a couple $100 more, you could buy a LG top load washer, which is pretty good all the way around, or you could save yourself a couple $100 and buy a nice pre-owned machine that will do well in just about every category. This machine, I feel like it was a good try and it was a nice effort by GE, but ultimately I feel like this is the type of machine that people get pretty annoyed about when they own it for 6 or 8 months and the beating noise of the tub hitting the side of the cabinet becomes too much to bear. One thing that's super important with these machines, so as with most modern washing machines, this particular washer is basically computer controlled, and this washer in particular is very susceptible to power surges, brownouts, power spikes, and this washer will break absolutely immediately if any of those situations arise. You definitely want to consider buying a single outlet surge suppressor or surge protector to protect your appliance from such an event. And that doesn't really apply just specifically to this model, although this one is really, really sensitive to having a power surge or brownout. But you should have that on every washer. You would plug your computer or your laptop into a surge protected outlet. You have to understand that these modern appliances are basically computers that just have a little bit of a mechanical spice to them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I just got in the new commercial Maytag top load washer, so I will be immediately testing that machine, hopefully today if I could get to it, but definitely for sure by tomorrow. I'm really excited to see how that machine works. So before you go out and buy this Hotpoint washer for $450, take a look at this new Maytag video because I think you'll be pretty impressed with it. Anyways, I'll leave you guys to that. I'm just going to put a couple of random clips of this machine running, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you on the next one.